Here at the Albița border point between Romania and Moldova, it's a thorough checking before anyone crosses over. Suitcases are opened, vehicles are inspected. Passports, visas, and registrations are checked over and over. The aim? To make sure that the border between a European Union member and one outside the EU is safe and secure.
This is the regular bus going to Portugal. There are 44 passengers. 2/3 are non-European Union citizens, the other third are EU citizens, so these people come from Moldova and are going to Lisbon. They're also Portuguese and Romanian citizens. The passports have been verified to make sure they meet the conditions to enter the country.
Whether controls were stricter on this night because our camera was filming isn't certain, but what is certain is that Romania has spent €1 billion, including EU funds, to upgrade its border surveillance. Here these men use night vision cameras to monitor the border between Romania and Moldova. Although tonight the only signs of activity are farmers and animals, 2 days earlier 3 illegal immigrants were stopped. Proof, the Romanian authorities argue that their country is ready to join the Schengen zone. A zone which allows EU members to travel without passport control, and one which would make Romania the final border with its eastern non-EU neighbors, namely Moldova and Ukraine. But some EU members disagree, and last month the Netherlands and Finland voted against Romania and Bulgaria joining Schengen. Next morning, back at the border control. This time it's sniffer dogs and other equipment aimed at finding drugs, smuggled items, or people hiding in vehicles. For this border police inspector, it's not clear as to why Romania still can't join Schengen.
At this Albița crossing point, border police from other Schengen countries came. So did officials from Frontex. They all said they were satisfied with the work that we do here. I don't know for what reason we haven't been accepted. I can only say I am disappointed.
Disappointment, frustration, sentiments that despite meeting all of Schengen's technical criteria, Romania is still being kept out. But the Dutch and Finnish governments argue not enough has been done to fight corruption and ensure the rule of law. In other words, Romania and Bulgaria have yet to convince some EU members that their collective external borders are safe and secure. For the director of Romania's anti-corruption unit in Bucharest, this is simply unfair.
For the first time, corruption has been added to the rest of the conditions for joining Schengen. This is a first for any candidate state that wants to join this organization. All the other states were not asked to comply to this condition, and the question was not raised at the beginning of the process, when Romania joined the EU. It only had to fulfill technical conditions, so it's better to establish the rules at the beginning of the game and not make them up as we go along.
These images were filmed by Romania's anti-corruption unit last December. They led to the arrest of over 240 border guards and custom officers at various checkpoints with Ukraine and Moldova. Although no one has been convicted yet, anti-corruption officials argue this is proof that Romania is cracking down on border bribes and illegal trafficking, doing more in the fight against corruption than Schengen members such as Greece. But for the head of Romania's police and custom workers trade union, it's still not enough.
What we saw on television was rather a media show. I am not saying that there is no corruption within the border crossing points, but they focus on the small-scale traffic, which represents a very small operation against the corruption in Romania. They only hit the base of the pyramid, and they did not go all the way to the top, to the real beneficiaries.
Romania and Bulgaria are the EU's poorest members, and the concern is that as long as there's poverty, there will be corruption and vice versa. But there is also concern that when these two countries joined the EU in 2007, Bucharest and Sofia vowed to finish some pending clauses, such as judicial and institutional reforms. 4 years later, these reforms are still pending. Victor Alister heads Romania's Transparency International. He says Bucharest should not accuse Brussels of treating Romanians as second-class EU citizens.
It's not about a double standard approach. It's more about an approach related to security of the Schengen system and security of the European partners to this mechanism that's actually the problem. And if Romanian authorities want to understand, they will solve the problem. If they don't want to understand, and they will continue to blame that it's double standard and cry and appeal to proud feelings and so on, they will not solve the problem.
Back at the border between Romania and Moldova, these truck drivers are fed up with two things: long queues and politics. They blame the government for budget cuts, but they also blame Brussels for asking them to change too quickly.
There are not enough people. There are only 2 custom officers for all these vehicles, and President Băsescu keeps cutting back. If he continues, pretty soon we'll have queues all the way to the western border.
If they look down on us, is that what you're asking? Yes, a little. We can't be at their level just like that, all of a sudden.
At this farm, not far from the Ukrainian border, 90% of the wheat and cereals produced here is exported to EU countries. Ovidiu Portariuc has created this successful business thanks in part to EU funding. Yet not being part of Schengen means more hours at the border, with sometimes a 30% increase in delivery costs. It's a lose-lose situation for him and his clients. He hopes his government and also other EU members will stop using Schengen as a political tool.
500 hectares is a kind of frustration because we made some efforts. I know that our country made some efforts on this point, and now we see no result. Well, I hope that in the future will be solved, or maybe soon can be solved. That everybody has to win. Otherwise, we feel like having a double standard. Our countries, like Romania and Bulgaria, the East countries, are judged with another measure, with another point of view. Maybe it's our perception, maybe it's different, but I can tell you how we feel here.
Within the EU, there is talk of a Schengen compromise, that land border controls will stay in place until 2013, but air travel will be passport-free. A hopeful sign while Romania still waits for the barriers to be taken down.